At this point, you will have begun to understand more clearly why, as I have stated in my introductory note to the story, I hesitated for so many years to publish an account of the events I am narrating. You know enough now of our experiences, I am sure, to agree with me that a story like this is not the kind of thing any normal, civilized person would care to go rushing into print. If these were times when the psychic was not looked upon as something surrounded with an unscientific aura, that is to say, a subject about which nothing rationally concrete can be stated, and hence one to be treated with smiles and gentle waggings of the head, my task would be a much easier one. But the harshness of our materialistic age is such that I suppose we cannot be blamed for scoffing at that which does not conform with the physical laws that drive us on day after day in our blind, itching urge for survival. What can we prove about ghosts and ectoplasm and all the rest of it? I am at this moment weighed down with the depressing knowledge that perhaps not 2% of those who hear this story will credit a word of what I am now putting myself to so much trouble to do. Indeed, I have already acquired a feeling of shrugging fatality in the matter. So long I keep telling myself, as I succeed in satisfying myself, that I have done a good job in recording every salient and relevant incident with as great a faithfulness as is humanly possible, why should I bother? Smile with the scoffers, but retain my good humor in the serene knowledge that I have been guilty of no prevarication. And now I shall have to ask you to pardon my dignified and verbose little lecture. Let us go back to Hood de Vries on that Thursday morning, and there continue the story of my bones and my flute. It was no longer Wednesday night when we stood around Mrs. Nevinson's bed, watching that hallmark of unknown forces that each of us in turn revealed. I can remember how I moved my head cautiously round to look at the clock on the dressing table. It said 1:10. Jessie must have noticed the direction of my gaze, for she exclaimed, "Look at the time, and we've got less than 6 hours, oh my lord." Her mother snapped at her to shut up. "What's the use of harping on it? If we're going to die in 6 hours' time, well, that's about the matter, isn't it? What have we got to squeal for?" She sounded light-headed and irresponsible, and I saw her husband give her an anxious glance. There could be no doubt that her dream experiences had taken a lot out of her. On her face was still that fixed expression of horror, as though even at that moment she were witnessing the blood-chilling incidents she had described to us a short while before. Retelling this is for me extremely awkward and painful, for it is no easy matter for a temperament like mine to be detached in respect to vivid instances of the past. I find myself persistently wriggling in my chair as I attempt to set down my impressions of our behavior on that Thursday morning. I can recall that I broke out almost nervously and hysterically at Jessie. "But look here, we've got to do something, you know. We're not just going to lounge around in this room and wait for 7 hours to run out. I don't see why we should be scared of any damn silly ectoplasmic horrors. We've got to do something about it. We've got to act." Mr. Nevinson intervened. "Very well, Milton. Come on, this is not like you. Get a grip of yourself." Mr. Nevinson patted my arm, but I could sense that he too was trembling and in a state of jitters. His mouth twitched frequently. "No, but I mean it, sir," I shouted. "We can't stand around and do nothing. We've got to act and follow the blasted bitches. Light fires all over the cottage. Surround the place with fire. Show them we don't mean to cave in without a fight. I don't surrender. I never surrender. I fight to the last bloody ditch." Mrs. Nevinson rapped at me. "But fight what? Fight air? Fight mist? And flute sounds? And bumpings in the middle of the air? You're talking like a fool, boy. We are lost. We've tampered with what we had no right to tamper with, and we are lost. Resign yourself to it." "I refuse to resign myself to anything. Let them come!" I bellowed as though addressing myself to the unseen outside. "The rest of you can resign yourselves if you like, but I'm not. I'm going out after them." I was perspiring and beginning to get hoarse. It was only after Mr. Nevinson and Rayburn had both grasped me firmly and pleaded with me that I found myself gradually calming down, though I shook in every inch of my body. I sank down onto Mrs. Nevinson's bed and pressed a hand to my forehead, swept with a desperate nausea. Paradoxically, however, it was what happened at this point to unnerve us still further that brought me in a snap to a state of alertness and self-restraint. The air began to thump. I sprang up, glancing quickly around, and summed up the situation in a flash. The waste in the plate was no longer alight. The spirit had burnt itself out a few minutes before. The candles of the easterly window had been snuffed out, according to what Mr. Nevinson and Rayburn had said, when the mist apparition had rushed from the room on my setting the waste alight. And at the other window the 2 candles were going out, having guttered right down to nothing. "We've got to light fresh candles," I said, and without waiting for any argument, ran to the window, hopped on through to the veranda, and looked for the spare candles. In the confusion, they had been kicked away from where they had been originally placed beneath the windows. I retrieved 2, and hurrying to the westerly window, lighted them from the dying flames of the spent ones. As the flames rose and swelled out, the air seemed to get less tense and less troubled. The thumping ceased, and the sinister oppressiveness, which had become more intense, diminished. I returned into the room, the eyes of the others upon me. I saw Rayburn in his grey flannel shirt and khaki shorts, standing by the washstand, poised as though to grapple with some adversary. And by the dressing-table Jessie was crouching on the stool, her hands pressed together as though cold, her eyes almost watery with fear. Mr. Nevinson, in his blue and green striped pyjamas, sturdy-looking, his head massive and bull-like, thrust forward a trifle, hovered by his wife's bed, right hand gripping tightly the left wrist. And in bed, in her flimsy pink nightgown, Mrs. Nevinson sat erect, and with that sculptured look about her face that had struck me when I glimpsed her after recovering from the ordeal I had gone through earlier that morning. It is a tableau that has carved itself on a plaque of metal in my memory. No detail of it could ever be corroded away. During the next half hour we made an attempt to discuss what should be done to protect ourselves against the danger that we felt certain was approaching. As might be expected, however, we all wanted to speak at once. We all had ideas to express and conjectures and speculations to vent. We all had suggestions as to how we might solve the problem of overcoming the forces opposed to us, and solve it within the few hours that seemed to remain for us. Our voices made an incoherent chatter in that room. We were like people drugged with the urgency of survival, and accordingly forgetful of proprieties and race and class prejudices. Many times in the midst of our excited babble, one of us would dart an anxious glance at the burning candles on the window-sill. Jessie once cried out that the flames were dimming, then contradicted herself immediately, admitting that she was mistaken. Another time, I remember, Rayburn said that we ought to light candles at the other window too, but I pointed out that the 2 at the one window had proven themselves to be adequate, for nothing had happened yet. There had been no more aerial thumpings. I believe that everything absurd and crazy that could be uttered by human beings was uttered in that room. The most wild and lurid conjectures would be posed. The most far-fetched and utterly impossible suggestions would be submitted for consideration. Lash ourselves to the beds and burn a candle at every door and window and lie still and wait. Let us crouch and huddle on the dining table and set a ring of lamps and candles around us on the floor. Push out into the middle of the river on a raft of timber, Jessie mooted. What about climbing into a tree and chain smoking? Yes, at any other time it would have been as funny as a scene staged by the Marx Brothers. But unfortunately, it was only too grim and real, and we knew it, for that strange apprehensiveness. I can think of no other word. still persisted in the air, pressing heavily on our harrowed spirits. Time was running out in the story of My Bones and My Flute.